Hi everyone, my name is Shoals, and this is my recording and presentation of my applied assignment. So let me share my screen. Okay, okay, I hope you can see it. I think you can. Okay, now let me just present this. Okay. Okay, here is my applied assignment. Okay, so the table of contents, I will be starting off with my pre-work, then research, my new learning, and then continued inquiry. So let's just hop right into my pre-work. So my initial topic for my pre-work was that I was talking about individuals struggling with disabilities that we cannot see. No one experiences life the same way as an individual with an illness does, and those with invisible battles are experiencing another hurdle because it cannot be seen. They can be judged, labeled, and not given the same chance as others in the room. Now, why? I was and am interested in the experiences and thought processes of a patient with an invisible disability. And the aspect of inclusion, by bringing in real life experiences, it helps me understand and learn more about my topic. So who the interviewee asked to remain anonymous, why I interviewed them about their depression, some background knowledge about the interviewee. They are a 60-year-old male. They enjoy the outdoors. They spend a lot of time on electronics and they do smoke as well. So the course materials that I use, these are the links put into APA7 format. So for the first one, my how and why, hospitals, I'm looking at for my course materials, I was looking at it more through the hospital perspective. So for the first one, for my how and why, hospitals are designed uniquely around the needs of each patient while trying to save as many lives as possible. And my second one, my how and why, it's important to understand at times that patients are never forgotten, but some cases, specifically the invisible disability cases, cause individuals to feel neglected because you cannot physically see or feel what the patient is going through. So this can especially be for like mental disability. Um, and a lot of the times, those with mental disabilities are admitted into hospitals. And so that's why I wanted to throw this in there for my course materials. So for my own research, the first one that I wanted to talk about was workforce participation barriers for people with disabilities. So for my how and why, it's people in the workforce with the disorder face a much harder time finding a job. They can face neglect from coworkers, lower pay, and little to not many accommodations. Um, Around 12% if they do receive some. And then my other one is all about invisible disabilities. And my how and why for this is depression is one of the many invisible disabilities that can take over people's lives by force and without warning. This can come unexpectedly or over time, but it is an ongoing internal mental battle the individual has to face. So my evidence to explain this photo, the top questions I had to interviewee via email because they were not with me physically at the time. So we had to have the interview via email. So the questions were from me, and then the bottom are their answers. So the one of the questions I asked was, what helps you get through tough moments? And they answered, praying and asking God for help and guidance, and also spending time outdoors. Then my next question was, how does it affect your everyday life? They said it becomes very burdensome and creates physical and mental stress. Now, this is very typical for depression. We know that um, it really is a burden on your mental life, but it can also affect your physical um, health and well-being as well. And then I asked them, when did you first notice signs of your disorder? They said they noticed it all the way back already in 1992. It's a long time ago. So they've been struggling for a long time already. And then I asked them, have you tried certain medications or treatments? They said yes. Um, but they didn't want to go into it, so I have to respect their privacy for that. Then I asked them, what's your experience been like? They said that therapies had positive results and some medications have adverse effects and cause other issues. So, um, again, every person has different experiences and, issues on certain medications, but currently this individual um, is not in therapy, but certain medications have positively affected them while others have not. So then I asked them, how has this disorder affected how you connect with other people? And they said, unfortunately, the ones you love are on the receiving end, which can put a strain on family life and distance between you and the ones you love most. And hearing this was very heartbreaking, um, because depression can cause that. And it's not the individual's fault. It's the disability that's coming in and it's kind of causing that divide. So it was very heartbreaking, reading that response. And then the last thing that I asked this person is I asked them, what would you want someone who doesn't have this disorder to understand about it? They said it can be very isolating for the person with the disorder and cause unhappiness and loneliness. And this was also very heartbreaking to hear and read. And I took a second when I read this. I was like, I would love for others to just understand and accept. And I will get more into this later, but knowing that people are going through unhappiness and loneliness, um, I just want people to try to understand this rather than, neglecting them. And it was heartbreaking to hear this literally from someone that is currently going through bad forms of depression at times. So, my first new learning of inclusion is I learned that we don't know what every person is going through, but we know ourselves and our story. And despite the troubles that we've been through or are currently enduring, we can make it because there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And although the interviewee does suffer from depression, they built a life for themselves. They have a family, they have a home, all that stuff. So they did not let the disorder completely overtake them, but they found a way to work with it. And this shows me immense strength and courage by not letting it completely engulf them. They are medicated and they do have their low moments, but they did not let it overtake their lives. And so that was very, very inspiring for me. Now, my evidence for this is on a walk through a meadow, I may say that the field mice are invisible, even though both my companion and I know that they are certainly visible to the hawks that circle the field and to us when they visit the kitchen for a midnight snack. This quote proves that we know of something that someone is going through, but are not aware of the full battle and experience of it. Along with that, this quote is showing that we only truly know the extent of the disabilities during the bad times. And by that, I mean the kitchen for a midnight snack. The point of the quote is that even though we don't know, others know and are suffering, and we should be inclusive and welcome them with open arms every day instead. So my next new learning is equity. So despite their struggles, the interviewee got a chance in life, but his depression made it and still makes it harder for him every single day. He doesn't let it stop him from achieving his goals, even though he has other undesirable outlets, such as continuous electronic use and smoking. And my evidence for this is among people with disability who were 15 to 64 years old, about 1 in 20, which is about 5%, were provided with special equipment, and 2.5% were allocated alternative duties to accommodate their disability. Now, this shows that there is some equality and support in the workforce, but it still needs to be severely improved because it should be 100%, not 5%. So, and my last new learning is access. Now, when it comes to depression, there are many mental blocks and things that are inaccessible within the mind that later on affect the individual's physical health as well. The disorder affects the accessibility of one's own true happiness and well-being. And my evidence and support for this is since it is impossible for most lay persons to verify the truth or falsity of many claims of invisible disability, the interlocutor's willingness to believe that the individual has an invisible disability may be contingent on his or her willingness to assume that the person is both credible and informed. It's a long quote, but in other words, it is hard as an individual with a disability, it can be hard to convince others that you have an invisible disability due to the lack of belief or that they cannot see it, so they may not believe, so they won't believe you because they can't see it, they can't touch it, all these sorts of things. That is that quote summed up. It can be hard to convince people that you have a disability because they can't see it, they can't touch it, they can't smell it, all these sorts of things. So that's the quote summed up. Now, what I would like to know is what would life be like if everyone accepted and understood those who stated they had an invisible disability? Would the world be a more accepting and opening place? Would there be more job opportunities? Would pay be better? What would the world be like? I would like to know this, especially as someone that has an invisible disability themselves. I'm very curious for this. I would also like to know, can depression evolve into other invisible disabilities? And lastly, I would also like to know, will there ever be a cure for depression, a legitimate cure? Because I'm aware that the medication numbs the pain, but it does not take it away. So I want to know if there will ever be a legitimate cure for depression. And I hope that there will be one day because what it does is very heartbreaking. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I would love any sort of feedback, any questions. Um, I, yeah, thank you so much. All right.